I never felt like I was making music for money. Maybe when I first started out, a little bit, but I still wouldn't compromise creatively, because if you want something that's financially safe, then wrong industry. Just stop. Just go and get a job somewhere. You have to be fearless. You have to be a risk taker.
Adaptability is a key component in the music industry. The ability to work with different musicians, styles, and artists of all types is important to ongoing success and growth. There are few better examples of adaptable musicians than our guest this week, Felix Snow. A lifelong musician, Felix has worked with artists like Christina Aguilera, Selena Gomez, Lil Uzi Vert, Gallant, and tons more. He is even one of the creators of the chart-topping song Gold by Kiiara, but it doesn't stop there. Today, Felix is part of the country pop duo 17 Memphis, continuing to showcase his incredible musicianship. Felix joins us to talk about how he approaches music on our new season of The Big Break.
Well, I was born in Stamford, Connecticut, so I'm from Connecticut originally.
Okay. Well, I have to ask you a question, and this might seem like out of left field, so I'm hoping you know what I'm talking about here, but can you tell me a little bit about Bob Leinbach? Leinbach?
Nice. He's the man. I mean,
all right, explain who we're talking about.
He's that was so when I went to St. Luke's in New Canaan, he was the man. I don't know if he's still there or not, but he was the music teacher. Him and another guy, Mr. Shalinsky.
He was your high school music teacher? Is that right?
Yep. For the last 2 years of high school, yep.
And why is this worth bringing up, do you think?
Leinbach. He's kind of a legend. I mean, he's always worth bringing up. So.
Well, didn't he write? He wrote "Still the One," correct?
Yeah, he was like part of Orleans, I guess.
Okay.
And back in the day. So.
That's funny, and then it's pretty interesting having a music teacher in high school who at least had a hand in writing such a famous song. So I bring it up only because I'm just this is my sort of roundabout way of trying to kind of get into your genesis, I suppose, of the music industry, and as an artist yourself. Did that have anything, that class, did he or anything like that have anything to do with it, or is that just like a funny side story?
Have anything to do with what?
With you deciding that music was something you wanted to do.
No. I mean, it was awesome to have that in high school, but I've just always been into music way before that.
Okay, well, let's talk about that then. So how do you recall getting into music? Was it one of those things where you had a music family, or just what was the...
No, it wasn't a music family. My mom tells the story to me because I can really only rely on her story, because I didn't have I was too young to have a memory, but she talks about playing the Phantom of the Opera music and me just totally singing along to that or something. And I think the first music I actually remember is the Beach Boys, listening to that when I was 5 or 6 or just very, very young. And that was probably the first memory.
So how did you first start beyond appreciating music? Start actually creating it? Did you play guitar? Did you sing? What was your instrument, so to speak?
The first thing was drums, yeah, and that was probably. I always talking about them the other day. I always credit Red Hot Chili Peppers for teaching me how to. Because Chad Smith was the first person I wanted to emulate on. Drums, and Flea was probably the first bassist I wanted to emulate on bass. That was my next thing, and then after that I wanted to do guitar, and it was Frusciante was the guitar guy, so, and it was just so easy to learn from them too, because their recordings are just them, so you could really hear what they're doing. And
yeah, and I think that I'm glad that you brought up Frusciante, because usually when someone mentions the guitar player for the Chili Peppers, that you have to quantify that in some fashion, because there's, I think, 7. So I'm exaggerating.
Yeah, he's apparently back. I heard that a few days ago.
So you start with drums, migrated the bass on a guitar. Was this in the course of like a year or 5 years, like, or this all happened at once?
Probably 2 years.
Okay,
It was in
wow.
that order. Yeah, probably in a couple years. But
And
my
like,
parents were just super supportive of that, so that was a big piece of the puzzle for me.
okay, and give me a time frame here, like an age range. What grade were you in or something?
I think I started playing drums at like 9 or 10.
Oh, it's 9 or 10, and from there, so by 12 years old, you're playing drums, bass, and guitar.
Yeah, learning them.
Learning them anyway. Sure, fair enough. Fair enough. So when did you go from the learning that did you like get into like a band at something earlier on?
Oh, instantly. Yeah. I mean that's one of the wonderful things of school is the social aspect, where there was probably like a band every week, of just and there was always the music kids, and no matter how horrible the music was that was created, the joy of playing it was always present.
Did you have like a first official band?
Yeah, it was called Sixth Gear.
Sixth Gear.
Yeah.
Like it? And what were you guys playing? I know this sounds like really granular, but I love these origin stories. Like, and what were you guys playing? Like, what songs?
Awesome, man. Like, I haven't thought about this in quite a while. It was actually because it was at the same time that it was actually one of my friends, the guitar kid named Eric, had a Korg. It might have been a D8, which is the digital recorder. And that was when we all got into recording at the same time, too. And just recording anything, the most horrible stuff, but just loving it.
What kind of music were you playing? Chili Peppers?
Yeah, honestly, yeah. I'd probably, like modern alternative, I mean, we were in Blink 182 and just, all that kind of typical, like, what you listen to when you're like 10 years old,
That's great. So we can fast forward a little bit. I think if I understand correctly, you went to NYU and you studied music, correct?
Yeah. I went to the Clive Davis program there, which is basically, well, it's a lot of engineering, but it's also supposed to be industry primer as well, for music.
So tell me about that decision. I mean, going from playing with your friends in Sixth Gear, some Chili Peppers covers, to actually deciding to go to school to study this seriously. What was the turning point in your head that decided this was an avenue you wanted to take?
Honestly, it's probably like from when I was born. Like I can't. It was never a choice to me. Like music still doesn't feel like a choice to me. It's just what I do. It just is. And I think I'm very thankful for my parents in supporting that kind of thing, because it's like, deemed to be not a feasible career path, or whatever for your child and stuff. So they saw my passion for it, and but I've never chosen it.
So it chose you, and it was from as early as you can remember, this was a path that you were going to take. There wasn't like that aha moment.
Absolutely. I think if I were to choose something, I'd rather be like a painter, or like I'd really like to write books or something, but it's all music, and it's all kind of the same thing anyhow. So
all right, well, let me take a different stab at this then. What was the thing that made you think that, not just that you wanted to do it, which I think is not an uncommon motivation, but was there a point where you realized that maybe you could do it? That this was something that you really think, this is more than just a pipe dream. I think I really have a shot at doing something here.
In terms of
a career,
financial...
yeah, just in terms of a career. Well, not just being good enough at it to do it that people would want to listen to it. That's one component, but also something that, this is actually something that I'm going to be able to do and sustain myself as a living.
I didn't really think about that until I think it was the last year of college, because I went for all 4 years and I graduated, which is insane to me, because but it was like the last year of college, and I was like, man, it was out of necessity, it's like I needed to support myself doing it,
So you left yourself no outs. This was burn the ships. You're making this happen, or come help.
Yeah, no, it was just plan A.
Okay. All right. I totally get it. So great. All right. So you get out of NYU, and what happens? What do you start? You get that whole thing. Doors closed behind you. Real life hits you in the face. How do you start working?
Well, I kind of anticipated that. I was like, and it came during the last year, maybe halfway through the last year. I was like, man, like, I need to do this because I'm not gonna. My parents have done enough for me at this point. I can't I can't hit them up. Like I gotta do this some way or another. And that was the same time where I was really, I guess you'd say, networking and just really like writing and recording with anybody who was breathing really, and just like taking all opportunities and just going crazy.
Okay. Well, so when you were going through school, help me out a little bit. I've not gone through a music program, but were you more emphasizing in like performing, or were you more emphasizing in writing? I'm not familiar with how those programs work. Can you maybe explain a little bit how you kind of approach that?
Well, the Clive Davis one is kind of, it's unique in which it's I don't know what they're advertising it as, but what I went through it as was like, there's a lot of engineering focus. Like they're definitely teaching you how to use everybody, no matter who it is going through it. They're teaching you how to use compressors and like all this different stuff. And it was at that time that I kind of chose to really dig heavy into production. Like, I don't know, I got to shout out like Arca, Alejandro. I was around him using Ableton, and I was like, man, this is incredible, because I was totally into Chili Pepper, like the music, or like Grateful Dead. I was a huge Deadhead. There's no computers in any of that music, so when I saw Alejandro doing what he was doing, I was like, I really want to, this is as valid a form of expression, which wasn't the case in my head at that point, but it kind of opened up my eyes in that way. And it was a lot of production. They didn't teach you violin. They didn't teach you anything. Like, there was some music theory and stuff, but it was mainly about engineering. And then there was like music business classes, which I'm still, I still think experience is our best teacher for stuff like that.
Oh, we'll get into that, I think, in a minute. So, all right. So a lot of production work. You come out of it, and in terms of like role, what did you want to be? Did you want to be a performing artist? Did you want to be a A&R? Like, what was your initial goal?
I wanted to be a producer coming out of that thing, because I went into it with the artist hat on, kind of, and I came out of it with the producer hat on, really. And
does that take a shift in mindset in any way?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, probably less ego. It's just different. I mean, you're working with, I guess both of them, you're working with people, but they're different jobs.
And so what happened? What was your first job out of school?
I didn't have any, no jobs.
Well, maybe I can expand the definition of job. What was your first paying gig? How's that coming out of school?
Yeah, I mean, what ended up happening at that point was, I think it was 3 or 4 months before I graduated, and at the time her name was Katie Donovan. She ended up hitting me up. She was A&R at Warner Chappell in LA at that time, and she hit me up and she was like, "Hey, you should sign with us and move out to LA." And that's what ended up happening.
So you get a call from Katie to move to LA and sign a. And basically sign to them to what, write, produce?
Yeah. So do both.
So
just publish.
And how did that happen? How did you get on her radar? Were you out there sending them tapes or something, or what was the?
No, I mean that was directly connected to the whole like working with whoever the hell I could find. It ended up happening that one of the people I was producing for had a meeting with Katie, Katie heard my production, obviously asked who it was, and then called me about it.
Oh, great. So it's basically just get yourself out there, just doing things. So, obviously the podcast is about, the big break. Would you say that was your big break necessarily?
Yeah, that was definitely that was the transitional moment into this becoming a financially viable endeavor.
Okay. All right. It's a start.
Yeah.
So you're out in LA. Yeah. You're with I'm sorry, was it Warner Chappell? Okay. Mm-hmm. And you're producing. What are you doing? What are you producing? Any interesting?
Well, I mean, it was an extension of, before that it was like sessions, all in New York, and a lot of that was through Crush at the time, and JD over there, and Evan Taubenfeld. It's funny talks. It's not that long ago, but it feels like forever. And yeah, man, it was just an extension of that, where more sessions, except now you're always sessioning with basically other people who are published, which is supposed to get you a higher chance of getting a cut with an artist, which is, like startup producers end game,
right?
To get that producer fee and to get the publishing cut.
So what was your first cut?
I remember the first check I got for, it was for a Rita Ora thing. I'm trying to remember the name of the song now. But it was definitely Rita Ora, and I remember getting that check in the mail from, I guess, like Sony UK or whatever it was, and I was like, part of myself inside was like, yeah, okay. I did it. This is all right. This is
so
cool.
How long were you doing that for in general at Warner Chappell?
Since Katie called me, I mean, I was in LA for like just shy of 3 years.
Okay. And then what happened? What was the next step?
Well, I mean, during that time, it's life is like a self-discovery thing, but yeah, it was. I got to the point where I sessioned with some amazing writers, absolutely incredible writers, like top writers, sessioned with a lot of top artists. And there was still that part of me that was me before I went to Clive Davis, who was like an artist and stuff, So after that, I guess at the end of that kind of thing, I met this girl, Chelsea, at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena at Vegan Beer Fest, and I mean, I'm just condensing so much into so little here, but we ended up really getting along, and fast forward however long later, and we're making music together full time, as an artist. So that's where I'm at right now.
Well, how'd you? Okay, so
these are I just did like giant steps in like 2 seconds. So
okay, yeah, I'm like, wow, we went from there to right now in a pretty short order. I'm pretty sure there's a few steps along the way. But if I'm hearing you correctly, and tell me if I'm wrong, but if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that you're in the studio, you're producing, you're working with artists, you're working with writers,
right?
But you still had that itch to do your own music. Is that how? That's how I'm hearing it.
No, for sure. And in the midst of that too, there was like some artist development stuff. Like that was happening as well, where I wanted to develop other artists, and but that kind of, it was just shown to me that like I still want to do that, but certain things call to you, and you kind of have to heed that call.
As a growing artist or songwriter, keeping royalties coming in is important for keeping the bills paid. It's also important to keep an eye on those royalty payments. A lot of people we worked with here at Royalty Exchange were having a tough time making sense of the royalties they were getting paid. So we built a free tool called Know Your Worth that automatically analyzes every royalty payment made on your music. It breaks it all down in an easy-to-understand analysis with some insights that would be impossible to find elsewhere. Plus, it connects you with the thousands of investors on Royalty Exchange and allows them to make you offers on your music. So far, musicians have raised over $1 million for new projects, new ventures, and a whole lot of other things just through the Know Your Worth app. If you're earning royalties, you should be keeping track of them, and Know Your Worth makes it easy. It only takes about 3 minutes to connect an account, and the tool will automatically update over time. Just visit worth.royaltyexchange.com or find the link in the show notes to get started. Now, let's get back to the interview.
So let me talk a little. You've got a couple things here. I'm just looking through your history and my notes and whatnot. But I know that you worked on one project that was called out here specifically was with David Singer Vine, something called Momma.
Yeah, you got it. That was the genesis of our relationship. Yeah.
Okay. So can you explain what that is?
Well, it was,
or what it was.
That was a duo with the two of us, and he was. I don't know how I got hooked up with him, but he was through somebody. I mean, who gets hooked up with that? You know, how do you know in LA? But yeah, it was just like a duo. It was the start of our relationship, I would say.
Okay, and it got some traction, and you guys went on to do other things. But you were basically brought in, and you worked with Kiiara. It sounds like with Gold. It was actually a charting song.
Yeah. I mean. That was, I think it was funny. She had hit David up independently of myself, and she had hit me up independently of David. And we both kind of talked to each other one day and were like, who is this? And, you know, at that time, it was in my head to help develop artists. You know, it's like, because I was pitching to get cuts with bigger artists, you know, but it's like, why not develop your own artist? So that was my mind frame at that time.
Okay. Now eventually it sounds like you actually put together your own production company rather, and a label, Effess.
Yeah,
that right?
Effess. Yep, you got it. Mm-hmm.
So what led to that? Why did you decide you want to have your own production company and labels? Is this part of the artist development drive that you're talking about?
Yeah. Basically what I just said, where it's like, you know, instead of trying to rent a room in a mansion, build your own mansion kind of thing. That was the mindset with that.
Right. And I'm sorry for not knowing the details on this one. But is that still something that you're doing? Is that still operational?
Yeah, it's definitely something that I'm doing. I have a different strategy these days. You learn over time, you know. Everybody learns. And,
well, what did you learn, and what was the strategy that changed?
I didn't want to be anybody else's savior. I wanted to work on my own thing and, you know, really get to the heart of. Well, first of all, I wanted to do this thing with Chelsea, which just totally. That's it, you know, that was the focus, and it still is the focus right now. And from there, it's like, you know, perhaps stuff scales out, but 17 Memphis is, you know, is the way, the truth, and the life for me right now, and for Chelsea as well. Okay,
so now we've jumped to 17 Memphis now. So help me out with that one. That's your newest, latest?
Yeah, it's me and Chelsea. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And what is it? Is this what kind of music are you putting together?
Timeless music. It's country music, but it's I don't know. I guess you just call it country music, but we really love it.
All right, nothing wrong with but that's interesting. You've been dabbling in different kinds of music along the way, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, some of it more trying to find. I'm terrible at trying to define things with genre terms because that's not really how I think about music necessarily.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly, right. So I think more about like moods and whatnot. But you were what would be called more into like sort of the pop. I would even almost dare to say dancey almost type of realm for a while. How does that get to country? Was it just something that you just discovered along the way that inspired you, or was it always there?
Yeah, it was always there. I mean, like when you listen to Gold or any sort of pop stuff I've done, that was more new than what I'm doing right now, where I'm playing guitar all the time and I'm playing bass all the time, and we're in the studio tracking 4 musicians at a time. That's really what I came from, more than huddled down in Ableton for 14 hours straight, producing and mixing this song.
Okay, right, exactly. So a little bit more in the moment. But is there anything you brought from that production heavy background that helps you in what you're trying to do now?
Oh, absolutely. I think of them as 2 different dialects of the same language, where it's just like it's like if there's a producer in Ableton who's played drums his whole life or something. He knows the computer is the more modern dialect of music, but I don't think one is more timeless than the other. They help each other. For anybody making music, I think they're both very essential right now.
And it sounds interesting in that a lot of folks I speak with, there's a lot of folks that are, there's a lot of production work going on, there's a lot of songwriting work going on. There's this idea of whether you stick with producing and songwriting or you sort of migrate to performing on your own. There's this thought of working on other people's music versus working on your own, right? And that's fascinating to me. And then I'd like to understand a little bit better, because it sounds like this is a path that you've taken. You started off very much being part of executing another's vision, but you've always wanted to execute your own, right? And again, it doesn't matter whether you stick with. I don't think that's necessarily limited to having going from producer to performing artist. I think you can stay a producer within that same path. But the idea is like, what's in your heart versus what are you doing just to work in the industry. So that's an interesting journey as far as I'm concerned. And I'm just kind of wondering, if there's a certain right time where you try to make that jump like you have. Is it just when it just pulls so hard that you have to do it, or is it more strategic than that?
I never felt like I was making music for money. Maybe when I first started out, a little bit, but I still wouldn't compromise creatively, because if you want something that's financially safe, then wrong industry. Just stop. Just go and get a job somewhere. You have to be fearless. You have to be a risk taker. In terms of making your own music, I always was making my own music. There's a lot of ego. Just
in the music business. Tell me more.
In the music business and in life, it's just like super, and everybody tries to steal each other's work and whatever. And I guess just for me personally, I felt it was just such a convergence of factors for me too, because it was Chelsea and this new relationship, this new life. Now it's new music. It was like a whole garden like blossoming at once. And but I mean, in terms of advice, you always make music for yourself, even if you're a producer for other people. You're still like, if you're chasing trends, it's not creative anymore. It's not music,
Well, what I really laughed at was where you said, like, you've already decided upon a pretty risky career. Now's not the time to play it safe. Like, if you're gonna risk, like, don't.
You got to go all in, man. Yep.
That's absolutely that's brilliant, I think. So now, are you still with? I know I guess you no longer work with Warner Chappell, but are you still with them in any capacity? Are they like your publisher then, or how? What's the?
Oh yeah, no, I'm still published with Warner Chappell.
Okay.
I'm great friends with the dude down here in Nashville, and they've been great.
So the move from LA to Nashville, was that part of the country music transition type of idea?
Well, it was part of the life transition kind of thing, because Chelsea was our relationship was blossoming at that point. And, it was just like a get out of Dodge kind of thing where we were like, we took a cross country road trip in like a freaking rental truck, up, from LA to Connecticut through the way of Texas. And it was like a rebirth or like a birth in a way.
Okay. All right. And so how long have you been in Nashville now then?
3 years, three and a half maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I heard that's a lot happening in Nashville those last 3 years. It's changing quite a bit. How you keeping up with speed with all of that? Lots of growth, new people.
As a city?
Yeah, just in general, like everyone and their mother seems to be moving there now. Everything else.
Well, you definitely see an influx of money. There's definitely like yuppie cars that are there now that weren't there. It's not like we're seasoned Nashville, represent. I mean, we've lived
I
there
get it.
Coming up on 4 years, but it's like even in those 4 years, like we didn't see nearly as many Porsches as we do now, and there's like this whole yuppieism that's moving in.
All right. But it's not as bad as LA, I'm sure. I lived for barely 2 years in LA, so I understand that whole.
What'd you think of LA?
I live in Colorado now, and so it's a lot different than Colorado, is how I'll put it. It didn't really sit well with me. The skiing sucks, so I had to move back to the snow, basically.
Hell yeah. Yeah, man. Nashville's it's amazing. We love Nashville. It feels like home. And that's it. It's just very homey and awesome. And also, like, the first time I went to Carter Guitars, I was just like, it's such a music city. Like, LA is not a music city. It's just not. LA is like an entertainment city. Music is a means to an end of entertainment, where like Nashville is music, and it's awesome. It's the only city I can think of that's like that.
All right. So what's next for you guys? What's on the horizon? 17 Memphis.
We just signed with WME for booking, which is awesome. We're with this dude Kevin Neal, who's like one of the OGs. He's he books Jason Aldean, and I think he still currently books Florida Georgia Line, and he was with them from the jump, and he was with Jason from the jump too. But that's kind of like our biggest step up right now, and I'm sure when the time is right, we'll sign with some label or whatever. But
are you making music? Are you recording?
Oh yeah, all the time. We're doing a lot of recording at this studio called Sundog in Nashville, which is a very quaint blue collar setup, but that's how we like it. It's like it's awesome. It's an awesome place to, and you like the level of musical talent. Like I said, like we work with this pedal steel guy, Andy Ellison, and just the level of drummers in Nashville, the level of bass players, the level of guitar players. Everybody's like on this super high musical chops kind of level, which is totally inspiring.
All right, great, cool. And so, just in terms of are you producing this yourself when you guys actually come down to when you're done recording and whatnot? Are you using your background?
I mean, it's funny, man. Like I still do everything in terms of like I produce, arrange it, and then I end up mixing it. I taught myself how to mix, which is like half art and half science, and it's a bitch. Mixing is so hard. And it takes like a different side of your brain kind of. But yeah, man, still doing way too much.
Well, that kind of raises one last question, I guess. If you're doing all that mixing, all that post-recording stuff, does any of that experience bleed in and give you any lessons that you then alter how you're actually doing the writing of the recording at the front end of it?
No, because it's serving. The latter is serving the former in what you just said.
Okay.
Where it has to be of service to.
So it's like, so you need to keep the creation and the editing separate a little bit, it sounds like.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Or the editing has to serve the creation.
Well, listen, drive safely. Thanks for taking some time with us today, and hope to talk to you again sometime soon.
Thanks for joining us. To learn more about Felix and 17 Memphis, check out their social media profiles linked in the show notes. And be sure to tune in next time as we sit down with Cam Meekins to talk about his success as an independent artist. We look forward to seeing you there.